If you want further proof of something that I've been talking about, which is there's a media narrative against Chelsea right now, which is we are a dirty team, look no further than the commentary on this game. I don't know if it's the same everywhere, probably not, but the secondary commentator for us, Matt Holland, was just absolutely flip-flopping depending on who was involved in the challenge. When Caicedo goes in on Wharton and barely catches the top of his toe, Wharton goes down, rolls around, buys a yellow card for Caicedo. Matt Holland's talking about it's a very, very late challenge, definitely a yellow card. Slightly later on, Caicedo steps across Lerma, trying to block him off, ends up tripping him up. Lerma goes down like he's been shot in the knee, rolling around 10 times, trying to buy a second yellow card. Matt Holland's talking about, oh, Caicedo needs to be careful. His reaction could get him a second yellow. He's already been sent off. And then you've got Cucurella, gets knocked out of the air by Munoz, lands, rolls twice, pops back up, and somehow that's the one that's a bit of an overreaction. What's up, guys, and welcome to the Blues and Stripes. So comfortable 3-1 win. It's what I was hoping for. It's what we got. But there is a lot to talk about and discuss in this game. So first of all, we'll talk about a couple of the moments with the referee. First and foremost, of course, being the handball that leads to our third goal. This one is very tough. And it's one that I do understand why they looked at it for quite a while. And some people may argue the fact that they looked at it so long, well, does that make it clear and obvious? Probably not. But I've gone back and forth about how I feel about the decision because on the one hand, it is harsh. His arm's not away from his body, but it does connect with his arm twice. First on the way through, bounces off of that, kind of pops up, and then kind of moves it away as he's moving his arm forward. So he does touch it twice, but it does seem accidental. It's very close. But one thing that I will argue that I kind of agree with on this is there is a rule talking about how if you score with your hand, even if it's accidental, it's ruled out, which I think is a good rule. I think they also had if you assist with your hand, even accidentally, it's also ruled out. But I think they took that away because Palace's goal today was off of the hand of the player before it goes across to Richards. But like I said, scoring with your hand completely ruled out. I agree with that because you shouldn't be able to score with your hand. It's not a playable part of your body, even if you don't mean to, even if it just happens to bounce off your arm and go in. I think that's a good rule. So I think it should work in reverse as well. If you block a shot that is going on target, is definitely going to go in. If you block it with your arm, whether it's accidental or not, it should be a penalty. And I agree that it should be a yellow card, not a red, because even though he denied an obvious scoring opportunity, it's kind of like when you make a challenge in the box as the last defender. As long as you're going for the ball, you've got that double jeopardy rule. I feel like it works the same here. If it's an accidental blocking of a shot with your arm, that makes sense that it's just a yellow. So ultimately, I do think I agree with it. It's a very controversial one, and I'm going to be curious to see what the overall discussion about it online is. And they'll probably have to put something specifically in the laws about this. But I do think if you block a shot that's definitely going in with your arm, whether you meant to or not, it probably should be a penalty. And again, the card can depend on whether it was accidental or purposeful. But then moving on, we'll talk about the red card, and it was deserved. Honestly, Wharton, kind of an idiot, because he'd just gotten the one on Caicedo, which was very rough. He then goes in and just takes down Santos, like not even trying to play the ball, he just goes through the back of him. But since it was an upper body challenge, ref gave him some leniency. So the fact that shortly after that, he then goes sliding into a challenge he has no need to go sliding into. It's not like we're about to break out or anything. It was just such a stupid decision. And for Palace being in the situation they're in right now, where everything at the club just feels like it's falling apart, for Wharton to go and do this guy that's been touted as a future England star, all these big clubs want him, for him to go and do that, it's very petulant and it's not a good look for them. But now we can talk about us. So first of all, I will say, yes, on paper, this does seem like a win we should be getting. But like I said in my preview, this is the type of match where typically we do slip up. Against a team that's struggling, they have no right to be beating us. They have no right to be taking points off of us. And then we go and we fumble it, drop 2 points. So the fact that we didn't go and do that, the fact that we did put the game to bed, it was good to see. The overall performance, it kind of fluctuated a bit. First 15 minutes, I thought we were flying. We were creating good chances. The finishing wasn't there, but we were all over them. They couldn't really keep a lot of possession. Yes, a couple of scary moments on the ball, and I'll talk about those players in a second. But for the most part, we were moving it quickly. We were getting it down the field. We had players crashing into the box really well, and we were winning the ball back pretty regularly. But then after 15 minutes, it felt like we took our foot off the gas. They sort of stepped it up a little bit, started stepping out more, pressing us high, which caused even more problems for us. And then one bad pass from their young defender. Estevao reads it, gets in behind, and scores kind of against the run of play at that point. But from then on, it kind of felt like we were a bit more in control. Yes, Palace did have their occasional breakthrough, but honestly, they weren't really testing us as much as they were in that 15-minute period, from like 15 to 30 minutes. And second half starts, I thought we came out really well, looking to hit them early, looking to put a lot of pressure on them. João Pedro gets his goal, which is great, and we just kept pushing them, and eventually managed to get the third through the penalty. And honestly, I do think that's probably the most impressive thing about this performance. Yes, Rosenior did make a lot of subs that made us more defensive after the third goal, but it was the time between us scoring the first and us scoring the third that was where I was really impressed, because that's, I think, where Maresca probably would have taken his foot off the gas a little bit. Probably would have focused a lot more on keeping possession, a lot more trying to build up, trying to hold on to the 1-goal lead. And we've seen before what that tended to lead to, which is the other team would hit us back late, manage to take a point off of us. Today, it felt like we were pushing to get the second, then the third, and even the fourth. We were still looking to break out really quickly and try to get them behind their defense. I was really happy with that. I was happy to see a definite urge to get forward and try to score. Because I think too often this season we've sat on a 1 or 2 goal lead and just thought we're good. And that leads to those moments of nerves. Whereas in this one, yes, they get that late goal, but at that point we're still 2 up. Obviously, if they scored a second, that's where we get more concerned. But it didn't feel like it was coming. We saw a lot of good challenges from the defense. We saw a lot of good clearances from Sanchez. So I really do think this was probably the most impressive performance that we've seen since we're seniors taken over. But let's look at the lineup. First of all, I will say I was a little concerned seeing Santos, Caicedo, and Fernandez all in the midfield. Because like I said, against Pafos, I felt like that midfield 3 didn't allow us to be creative enough. But I do think something that helped us today is Palace were not going to just sit in. They did step out. They did press us, which opened up spaces for Fernandez to get on the ball. And also having Estevao, who likes to drift inside a little bit, I think that helped too, because it gave us another option in there outside of just Fernandez, who, in my opinion, he's not the most creative player. Putting Badiashile in the back line, little concerning, and he was definitely the worst of our back line. Nearly gave away a goal early on. Great save by Sanchez, but I do look at that and go, that's why we need to get another center back. Preferably a left-sided one, because he's the only left-sided center back we have at the moment, but the fact that we have to rely on him in some matches, because Fofana is not going to play every match. There's an argument to be made that Acheampong should be featuring in some of these matches, but even so, he's also not going to feature in every match because he's still young. So I think as long as Badiashile is an option within the rotation, I don't like that back line. I feel like it's always going to have some gaps, it's always going to be scary to watch, and today showed a couple of those moments why. But as far as the subs, like I said, I thought they were making us very defensive, but kind of understandable. We got the 3 goals. We don't need to push much more. Gave a break to a couple of players that will probably feature against Napoli in the midweek. But personally, I do think this is a good showing from Mourinho once again. I do still think it's a little early to be judging him, because we've seen several managers who come in and start very well, but then drop off eventually. But considering he's coming in midway through the season with players that he's never worked with outside of Santos, they're probably still used to playing Maresca's style. His does seem to be a little bit different. We do look to try to build out of the back, but the way we do is different from how Maresca would do it. But he's trying to figure out these players, trying to figure out where they're best utilized, and also still dealing with some injuries to some key players. So I think from what we've seen from him so far, it's been impressive. So I really do hope long term we will see this run continue. We'll see him continue to grow as a manager. Do I think he'll succeed? I don't really know. Based on prior experience, I don't expect it, because we don't see these young managers come in and do phenomenally. But who knows? Maybe he's the key. Maybe he's the one that gets these players working together as well as we know they can. And also, hopefully, he brings that consistency that we've been so desperately lacking for most of this season. But moving on to individuals, Sanchez, brilliant performance today. Some great saves to keep us in the match. Obviously, the one from Mateta in the first half was brilliant. Even for the goal, he makes a brilliant save on the initial attempt, and then once the shot comes in, deflects off of the player's head and hand and then goes to the back post, Sanchez is coming across there as well to try to block the header from Richards. So he once again showed why he's a good keeper, why anybody who's been saying that he's been poor all season needs to get their head checked. Also, one other quick thing, because I just remember talking about the goal. Yeah, another goal from a corner, and it's another one where there's just a lack of organization defensively. So once again, I'm asking questions of Bernardo Cueva. What is he doing to make sure we don't concede from set pieces? Because honestly, their throw-ins looked pretty dangerous today. James actually had a pretty poor game by his standards. Still did well, but there were several passes that went awry today that I'm just not used to seeing from him. There's one that he gave to Santos, completely missed him, nearly set up a chance in the second half. Thankfully, he got across and put the block in. But yeah, it was a weird one today, because I'm just not used to seeing him give the ball away so cheaply. The fact that he did, it concerns me. I do realize that might sound harsh, but again, it's because he is such a good player. I hold him to a higher standard, so when he is giving the ball away as much as he did today, it's bad by his standards. If this were Gusto, I'd expect it from him. Into the middle, Chalaba I thought looked solid today. Some good defensive clearances, good blocks, pretty good in the air too. So overall, solid performance. Badiashile, to be fair to him, he did step it up. I thought his second half was much better than his first, but that first half was pretty poor. Again, set up a great chance for Mateta that honestly could have changed the game if Mateta had a better shot, because he didn't really keep it away from Sanchez. It was just one of those moments that makes me concerned whenever he plays. I don't really understand why we're not looking to replace him. And then Cucurella on the left side, kind of same as James. I hold him to such a high standard. I expect him to be better than he was today. Several moments where he's losing track of his runner. It was a little too easy to play him behind him. Now, granted, I do think some of that is because of the guy in front of him who didn't have a good game, and I'll talk about him in a second. But yeah, for Cucurella, I think I just expect a bit more from him. So he didn't play poorly, but by his standards, it wasn't a good performance. Into the midfield, Caicedo and Santos both played well. Caicedo, once again, getting to be that workhorse in the midfield that just tracks down the ball wherever it goes. And a lot of that has to do with Santos, who's in there to essentially be the buffer and allow Caicedo to step out and do what he does so well. And Santos, I thought, had a really good game today. He's a player that's kind of featured here and there throughout the season, but never really got a consistent run of games under Maresca. It definitely feels like Rossignol, and some of it may be because he played for him at Strasbourg, but Rossignol does seem to trust him. And I do hope that means he's going to grow as a player, because from what we've seen from him so far, he looks solid. He looks like he's got the makings of a really good center mid. So hopefully he gets more time and we get to see more of what we saw today, because I was very impressed with him today. Fernandez was kind of hit or miss. He's not a 10, so I can't really hold that against him since he's got to be the creative influence in the middle. But I thought he worked hard, won the ball back well several times. He's the one that put the pressure on the defender that played it back to Estevao for the first goal. And while sometimes he does get a little bit into the dark arts that I'm not personally a fan of, I do like the fight and the grit that he has. You know, he's willing to go into a challenge. He's not going to back out like some players that I'll talk about later. But it is good to have that type of fight, even if sometimes he does go a little bit overboard with it. Onto the wings, Estevao obviously got himself a goal, got the assist. Good performance from him today. Kind of felt like he was fading in and out of the match in the first half until the goal, but after the goal, you could just see how much confidence that gave him, and he just started to really strut his stuff, really put some pressure on the back line. Nearly got a second from breaking in behind the defense. So it's another good performance. I hope we get to see more of him because he's proven to be a really talented player. But on to Neto, and this is one where typically I'm a Neto defender. I think his hard work, his aggression, his runs in behind, a lot of that for me negates the moments where he's maybe not as clinical in the final third, because you do need a player like Neto who's working his butt off to help the team. I like having that type of player in my team. That's why, for me personally, I was not happy when we got rid of Gallagher, because even though he's not the most creative influence, he works his butt off and he opens up the space for players around him to be creative. So personally, that's why I like having Neto, but today, I will say he was not giving us any of that, and he also wasn't very effective in the final third. So today is one of the few days where I will 100% agree with anybody who wants to criticize Neto. I thought he was very poor, and like I said earlier, I think that didn't really help Cucurella, because there were a couple times where Cucurella was caught in kind of a double team. You know, Munoz is out there. Obviously, he likes to make overlapping runs as kind of a wing back, but then Sarr is getting out there as well. And typically that's where you want Neto to help Cucurella out. And he does in most matches. We saw him do it with Hakimi against PSG. We saw him do it with Timber against Arsenal. So the fact that he didn't today was very disappointing. And there were just a couple of moments where typically he's much quicker. He's much more aggressive to go win the ball. Whenever the ball got played in behind, he got outran a couple of times. It was just not a good look for him today, and definitely one of his poorer matches that I've seen. And then João Pedro up top got himself a goal, which is nice. I thought he worked his butt off again. One thing that he does very well that a lot of people don't really notice is he gives us an option whenever we play the ball up there. It's something that I think Delap needs to work on, because more often than not, when we play the ball forward, Delap's nowhere near it. And so the defense just picks it up easily, plays it back into our danger area, and now we're under pressure again. João Pedro, he's always working. He's always putting himself in a good position. He's there to win the ball back. He's there to hold up possession for a couple of seconds to allow us to break out a bit. So I'm glad he gets the goal, because it'll take some of the pressure off him from the Chelsea fans that don't recognize a striker for anything but a goal scorer. But for me personally, he's really stepped up since Maresca's gone. So I don't know if Rossignol's just sort of taken the shackles off of him or inspired him with some confidence, but he looks a much better player right now, and I'm back to feeling confident whenever he starts up top. As far as the subs that came on, trying to go through all these in my head to make sure I got them all right. So the first was a triple sub. Fofana came on, went out to right back. Thought he did okay, made a couple of good defensive clearances, won the ball in the air a few times. Gusto came on kind of as a right wing back. It's a very weird system by the time all the subs were made. But this is the player I was talking about earlier when I talked about Enzo not pulling out of challenges. Yeah, Gusto did. And ultimately it set up for the corner that led to the goal. Because I think it was Lacroix that brought the ball down right in front of Gusto. And seeing the motion he made absolutely pissed me off. As a coach, that would be the type of moment where I'd yank him. I don't care if he just got subbed in. I'd yank him off the field because the ball's up in the air. And instead of going to challenge Lacroix for the ball, or trying to get around him so he can't have a free shot, Gusto pulls one of these. As soon as I saw that motion, I was ready to grab him by the collar and just rip him off the field. That's embarrassing. As a defender, you do not out of a challenge. That's awful. And especially because he has the shot, Sanchez makes a good save, out for a corner. And then on the corner, I'm pretty sure he's one of the ones that got beat on the initial header that Sanchez had to keep out. So I just don't understand how he can be a defender when he's so inept at defending when the ball's in the air. So I'm not going to go too much harder on him because I don't want to feel like I'm singling him out, but I've just seen so many moments where it feels like he's not learning from his mistakes. How many times has he been beaten in the air that leads to a goal? Way too often. And then the final sub at that point was Gittins on for Neto, which I thought was appropriate because, like I said, Neto was not really giving us much today. And Gittins I thought did okay. He worked hard. I would still like to see a little bit more from him, but he did probably have one of his better performances in the Premier League because that's typically where he's really struggled. He's done pretty well in the FA Cup, League Cup, Champions League, but in the Premier League, I just don't think he's quite ready to go up against that level of defender. Then we have the other two subs. Hato comes on for Caicedo. I know he's considered a versatile player, but I didn't expect to see him in the midfield. But I thought he did pretty well. He's a player that's definitely grown in confidence since Rosinier's come in. I think a lot of that is just down to Rosinier's giving him time, where Maresca really didn't. And then Delap came on for João Pedro. Didn't really have much time to do anything, but I still kind of wanted to see more. There's one moment in particular where I think he does well in the initial challenge. Ball's in the air, manages to kind of beat the defender to it, flick it on, and it's a foot race between him and Will Hughes, and he loses the foot race to Will Hughes. That's not good enough. For a striker that I've seen have a lot of good pace whenever he's breaking in behind the defense, the fact that Will Hughes beats you to the ball, it's not a good look. But ultimately, he's just a striker that I want to see more from because there's a lot of hope whenever he was coming in because he is a bit of a bigger striker. There's a hope that we were going to get another striker like a Costa or like a Giroud. But so far, he's just not given us anything close to those levels. He's not good in the air. He does bully the defense, but not in the way we need him to, typically just giving away fouls. And I'm not seeing any real pace from him that allows him to beat the defense in behind. So unfortunately, I'm just not seeing enough from him right now. I still do think bringing Jackson back and having him and João Pedro be our two options is still the best choice. But I know that's highly unlikely, so c'est la vie. But to wrap it up here, 3-1 win. I think it's a good performance. I think it's a great result. And it's one that people might downplay because Palace is in such a rough run of form. But like I said, this is the type of match where we typically see us slip up. So the fact that we didn't, I think is a good thing. I think it reflects well on Rosenior, and I really hope this does take some of the criticism that so many Chelsea fans have given him for no real reason. I hope this quiets a lot of that noise because I think it's ridiculous to heap all this criticism on him, saying that he's no better than Maresca whenever he's come in and he's won matches, which Maresca was not doing when he was on his way out. And again, I understand the frustration with the board, but don't let the frustration with the board seep into criticizing the players and the manager who are trying their best, who are looking to try to improve results. I understand everybody can support the club in their own way, but wishing us to lose so that the board gets shit, I do not understand that mindset, because at the end of the day, wishing defeat upon your team, to me, doesn't sound like something a fan should be. But those are all of my thoughts, so let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What are your thoughts on the match today? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all the good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Chelsea previews, reviews, and talks, and until next time, hope you guys have a great day, and I'll talk to y'all later. Peace out.